This is the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update.
We'd like to say that, in our opinion, it is not suitable for children or for those of you who may have a nervous disposition.
Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 313, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defends his title against #1 contender Magomed Ankalaev, and an explosive lightweight bout between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Pazzi. UFC 313, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
Spanning the globe to bring you the latest in classic rock news and comment. It's the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update with your host, Jeremy Lunnan.
Everybody's working for the weekend. Hey, it's time for a Friday edition of the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update. I gotta say, first, a few things going on. I'm having a bad hair day, so don't look at my hair. Secondly, my mighty Gonzaga Bulldogs in the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament, they're playing against Purdue. I'm worried. I am worried. Purdue's really good. I'm worried. My Gonzaga Bulldogs are awesome. I think they can win. It won't be easy. I'm going to go to it. There's a theater here locally that you can go see the Gonzaga games at. So they don't charge you to watch the game, but they charge you $20 for a popcorn. So that's what I'll have going on. About 4:30 p.m. my time, I'll be going to the theater with my boys, and we'll be watching the Gonzaga Bulldogs. So go Zags. All right. Hey, I want to give a quick shout out to our new sponsor, Stub Forge. Guys, this is like a perfect sponsor for the Classic Guitar Rock podcast. Seriously, we talk so much about folks that collect albums. They collect, concert memorabilia, t-shirts. Remember concert tickets? How many of you still have a bunch of concert tickets from the 70s and 80s? All the shows you attended. Stub Forge is for you. Stubforge.com. Made for folks like us who collect ticket stubs. That you can't get them anymore because now they just send you an email when you buy a ticket, right? It's all electronic. Well, StubForge can actually make legit physical versions of those concert tickets. They use the same paper that like Ticketmaster uses. They use the same printers that those companies would use to make concert tickets. So you go to their website, stubforge.com. There's an interactive designer, so you can design the ticket. So you can do it with real concert tickets. But this is the thing I think is so awesome. What a great idea. If you're having a party, you're having an event, you're inviting people to whatever it is, retirement party, birthday party, wedding, whatever, you make concert tickets for it. I guarantee you those folks will hang on to those forever, and they will think, this is the best thing ever. Go to their website, check it out. Obviously, volume discounts, the more you order, the cheaper each ticket is. And that's a really reasonable price to begin with, but it gets even more reasonable per ticket the more you order. It's just a perfect, fun thing for folks like us that are into concert tickets and collecting that type of stuff. Check them out today, stubforge.com. We've already got people chiming in here. Greg F says, we still have a record store here a few towns away. They sell CDs, tapes, albums since the 80s. Okay, so you can still go and buy at record stores CDs, tapes, and albums since the 80s. That is awesome. I'm wondering, Greg, do you still have old concert tickets? I'd be interested to know if you've hung on to any of yours. I have a few, not a whole bunch. I didn't say them all, but I've got a few, and Greg replies, yes, he does. So there you go. Stubforge.com. Check those guys out. All right, let's get to the news now. And Greg, thank you for checking in this morning. An artist who created a new sculpture for a Paul McCartney benefit single says the piece was banned because it was unflattering. Okay, so I have a few problems with this story here. This guy was not banned. Okay, when someone does not select your offering, it doesn't mean you're banned. It means they didn't want it because it looks like crap. And if you've seen this photo, it's a terrible work of art. If I was Paul McCartney, I wouldn't have chosen it either. Looks like crap. But this guy says he was banned. He wasn't banned. They just didn't pick yours because it's crap. Big difference between not being selected and being banned. He says, this year I sculpted Paul McCartney, but my contribution was banned by Macca, which is short for those what they call McCartney, and the gang because it was too unflattering. Well, yeah, it is unflattering. It looks like crap. So what happens is there's this, and it's all for a good cause, right? They do this thing where artists will donate their music to be used as part of a campaign to raise money for this organization called War Child. It helps children that are victims of war. And his piece wasn't chosen. It wasn't banned. It wasn't chosen because it's crap. He said, but he auctioned it. Here's the good news. He was able to auction this banned piece of art and he made lots of money that will go to this cause. So that's great. He said, if they'd left it alone, it would have been lost in the 700 odd secret 7-inch sleeves. Again, part of the campaign, you get this, they sell these records and there's whatever, but now they've banned it. It's getting all this extra attention. So great that this is able to make more money, right, from it, but he wasn't banned. Silly. Oh, and Pat Benatar, Pat Benatar's the next story. McCartney issued a statement over it, and he said, I've never even seen this sculpture that this guy made. So some of his people, it didn't even get to Paul. His people said, no, we don't want that because it's crap. And it is crap. You can find the picture of it. It looks kind of, it's just stupid. It's why I wouldn't pick that. If someone made a picture of me that makes me look goofier than I actually look, why would I pick that? Anyways, now let's talk about Pat Benatar and her husband, Neil Giraldo. Neil Giraldo, one of my favorite guitarists from the 80s. Guy was awesome. Of course, he played for Pat Benatar. People don't know he also played on the first Rick Springfield album, which for my money is maybe Working Class Dog is one of the best power pop records ever. Side one of that record, flawless. The guitar playing, flawless. Anyways, Neil Giraldo's awesome. Pat and Neil are kicking off a tour. They've been busy. They did over 50 dates last year. And they're off to another busy year this summer. In fact, they're coming through my neck of the woods in August. And my wife has already asked if we want to go. And I'm like, yeah, we want to go. So they're kicking off their tour. They're calling it the Funtastic Tour. They're going to, they've got dates. They got a bunch of dates all over the country. They're swinging through my part of the world in August. So I will try and check them out then. Now, here's one problem I have. Okay. I don't mean to get grumpy. And Greg says Neil is an underrated guitarist, big time underrated, brilliant guitar player, just an awesome guitar player and producer, just a really talented guy. Pat Benatar, obviously talented, great singer. And they're just a great partnership. They've been together since 1980. So that's awesome. 1979, probably. So still married, great. And that's awesome. Here's my only beef with Pat Benatar. Here a couple years ago, they said, we're not going to play Hit Me With Your Best Shot anymore. Because they don't want to offend anyone. If someone gets offended by the song Hit Me With Your Best Shot, they're too stupid to go to a concert. Okay. So it kind of disappointed me because I love that song. When I go see Pat, it's one of my favorite Pat Benatar songs. I want to hear Hit Me With Your Best Shot. I do not feel threatened by Hit Me With Your Best Shot. And anyone that is an idiot. Don't cater to idiots. That's all I'm going to say. If someone has a problem with hit me with your best shot, they can stay home. They can plug their ears. Makes me mad. Doc McGee. Okay, so Doc McGee is a manager. Okay, most famously, he worked with Kiss, right? But he also worked with, in the 80s, Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, Skid Row, Scorpions. Well, back in 1982, he was busted. He was involved in a drug smuggling ring. They were bringing in a bunch of illegal weed. Okay. The devil's lettuce. He was involved with this, right? He was facing up to 30 years in prison, but somehow he was able to avoid jail time. Speaking of jail time, my friend Will Hines, who is a law enforcement professional, he's chiming in. He says, "Hey, Jeremy." Hi, Will. Again, a law enforcement professional. There's no way I'm going to let Will talk on this podcast. No, he has incriminating evidence. He's welcome to come in and say hello, but he knows he's not allowed to talk about me on this podcast. But I'm glad he's here because I'm talking about legal issues and he could help if I would let him chime in. So Doc McGee facing jail time, up to 30 years in prison. How did he avoid it? Well, according to John Bon Jovi, in a conversation to Conan O'Brien, this is what happened. John Bon Jovi says, quote, "To keep him out of jail, I had to go to the Soviet Union. Somehow his plea bargain was to take the young, cute kid," I guess he's referring to himself there, "and throw him to the wolves and the judge." And then he says, "And I've got an idea. We'll go to the Soviet Union and promote peace and harmony. And please, Your Honor, don't put me in prison." So that's what John Bon Jovi says is the reason that he didn't do jail time. Well, Doc McGee, who I have to be honest, I don't know the man, but he seems like kind of a shady dude. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. Just, he said, who are you going to trust more, John Bon Jovi or Doc McGee? I got to say, I kind of trust John Bon Jovi more. I could be wrong. I just am throwing it out there. But Doc McGee says the real truth of the matter is that it had nothing to do with it. The real truth of the matter is it had nothing to do with it, period. What judge in this world would say, "Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you off. You just have to do the first show in the history of the Soviet Union"? Nobody's going to say that. So that's what he says. But then listen to this. He goes further. "Before that show, I had Motley Crue, Aerosmith, Bon Jovi. We had everybody in rehab. I was very into keeping people. I was very into keeping people, trying to get them to understand where they fit in life without drugs and alcohol." Remember, in 82, he was busted for smuggling in marijuana. But now he's concerned about people not doing drugs. So this was one of the ways with the Make a Difference Foundation that I could bring doctors from the West to Russia to teach them how to treat drug and alcohol abuse. The artists, including Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne, Skid Row, and Scorpions, were not paid for their performances. Meanwhile, McGee claims he financed the entire undertaking himself. But here's where it's interesting. He concedes, Doc McGee does concede that the Moscow Music Peace Festival could be considered a byproduct of his legal problems. It had nothing to do with Doc McGee other than I wanted to go to Russia. I don't. What do you think? What do you think? From the Brave New World file, we have a couple of technology stories here. You know, we all know that at some point, artificial intelligence is going to take over the world, and it'll be like Terminator and Logan's Run and all that. I mean, it's coming. It's coming. So what does this mean to music? Well, Accept guitarist Wolf Hoffman. Remember back in the 80s, Wolf had the cool 80s hair, and now he looks like Bruce Willis. I mean, he looks great, but it's a completely different look. He's bald, right? He's in really good shape and he can still shred with the best of them. He talks about AI and musicians using certain AI tools now. He says, quote, well, the potential good is that, yeah, you can create sometimes. Like, for instance, I tried it for lyrical ideas and it's scary good, to be honest. You can just say, hey, write me a song lyric or something, and it spits out some pretty amazing stuff. But of course, you have to say, is this really what I wanted to say? And is it me? Well, then how would I really say it? So you still have to tweak it. And we ended up never using any of it. But for songwriting and demoing stuff, I was quite intrigued. I found it intriguing. It gives you a bunch of ideas that you hadn't thought about. And of course, I've seen some images that were done with AI that I thought, whoa, a designer or a human would have to spend a lot of hours creating that thing, but it spits it out like that. So, and guys, in my real job, I use a tool, for instance, that helps me design training. Okay. So for instance, there's an AI tool that I can go in and I say, I want to do training on, I put in some keywords, blah, blah, blah. It will search this database of thousands of courses and you tell them I want it to be 2 hours long. It'll basically go in and spit out courses, segments, edit out chunks of existing learning that meets your criteria. And so in a matter of minutes, I can do something that in the past would have taken me days. So there is value in AI. Now, where it gets scary, and we see this on YouTube all the time. Have you seen all the videos where AI creates a sound-alike voice? You'll hear a video that sounds like Joe Rogan, but it ain't Joe Rogan. It's something stupid, but it's Joe Rogan's voice or Patrick Stewart's voice or Vincent Price's voice, whoever. That's kind of creepy. And the deep fakes, right? Video, not just with audio, but with video. That's the thing we got to be aware of with AI. There's some cool things. AI, don't get me wrong. There's obviously upside, but there's some scary things as well. It will be interesting, not just in music, but just in general, how AI will play into things. Marlon says, hey, Jeremy. Hey, Greg. He's checking in. Thank you so much. Another technology thing. Marlon, thank you for saying hi this morning. Another technology thing, this time from Billy Sheehan, the great Billy Sheehan, one of the great bass players. This is a little different. We've been talking about streaming music. You know, for years, the knock against streaming has been artists don't make any money. But, you know, the platforms don't really make much money either. Okay? The platforms don't really make much money. So here's what it boils down to, guys. It's us. It's us, the consumers. And I'm not saying we're bad. I'm just saying that the market has established what we're willing to pay to stream music. And by the way, these artists that aren't making any money, well, they need to go right back to their record companies, because it's the record companies that make these deals with the streaming platforms. So, and this is just the way it is, guys. They can decide to not put their music on the streaming platforms. How'd that work for Neil Young and Joni Mitchell? Right? Well, they're back. Why? Because even though they were making a pittance on the streaming platforms, they were making something. They came back for a reason, right? It all comes down to the market. We, the consumers, have established here's what we're willing to pay to stream this music. If the record companies don't want to stream it, they don't have to. But of course they do, because they would rather make a little money than no money? I don't know what the answer is, guys. I don't know. Here's what Billy Sheehan says about it, about this whole access over ownership. You know, it's streaming, basically. He says, well, it's just different. As you get older, a next generation comes along and does things different. And all the old people complain that that's not how we did it. And this is a lot of it, right? These artists that were around in the 70s, well, it's different. We used to make all this money and we'd get a big advance. Well, you don't anymore. You don't. Those days are gone. Okay, there used to be companies that manufactured buggy whips. All the complaining in the world will not bring back horse and buggies. Okay? Markets change. But what's kind of standard, but okay, blah, blah, blah. This quote talks about old people complaining. That's not the way we did it, but that's kind of standard. But things evolve and change. And there'll come a time when people will look back and say, remember when people used to just download one song? That was ridiculous. How stupid. It'll always change generation to generation. So I'm not opposed to it. I think he's talking about streaming, as long as they're listening. I think it's good. And music is available everywhere now. I mean, on my phone, I can access anything. Some oddball, obscure bootleg track by Jimi Hendrix, I found it. I got it. I found it on YouTube. You can find it anywhere, so it balances out. It is what it is, okay? Yeah, it's different, and we might miss the good old days. The artists make the good old days, miss the good old days, but it's changed. Brave new world. Joe Satriani. Now, we've talked about this last week. Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, they've known each other for 50 years, right? And they finally have released their first ever single together, The Sea of Emotion, Part 1. We talked about that last week. But we know Joe's in the midst of preparing for this Best of All Worlds tour. It's Sammy Hagar's tribute to Eddie Van Halen, because the Van Halen camp isn't doing anything. So Sammy's going to do something. Where was I at? Oh, Joe is talking about how tough it is to learn these Eddie Van Halen songs. He says, my task right now is trying to unravel the mystery of Eddie Van Halen's strange guitar playing. I spent decades avoiding how to learn his stuff so I wouldn't copy it. And now all of a sudden, I'm doing a crash course on the idiosyncrasies and the genius of his guitar work. I know these songs, but I've never actually played them. It's a task. He continues, I was so happy when Sammy said he wanted to do The Seventh Seal, which I thought is such a great progressive Eddie Van Halen song, so different from Ain't Talking About Love and Panama. Although when you play Panama live with the band, it's pretty exciting, end quote. So Joe's getting ready to do this tour. He's a perfectionist, right? He'll go in, Sammy does his solo, his guitar player, Vic Johnson, they do lots of Van Halen tunes. Vic is a phenomenal guitar player, but Vic is not he does justice to the songs, but you can tell he's not playing them note for note. He's not staying up late at night, pulling his hair out, trying to figure these out. I am guessing that when we go see this tour, the Best of All Worlds tour with Joe, who has been spending the last 3 months nitpicking these Eddie Van Halen songs, I bet he plays them like note for note, right? It'll be interesting to see. Greg says UFO ridiculously underrated. I got into them after the Wild, the Willing, and the Innocent release. Yes. Did we talk about UFO? We talk about UFO a lot here, to be honest. So I love UFO, and I agree that they're one of the most underrated bands ever. Absolutely. I do have one email that I want to share here. It says, Dear Classic Guitar Rock Gang, on your recommendation, I've been cranking up the new Saxon album. Wow, I love it. Thanks for turning me on to it. And thanks for the daily update. I listen to it every day on my way home from work. Steve Daly. Steve, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Saxon, Hellfire and Damnation, the latest album. I love that. There is not a weak track on it. And I've been shouting it out since that album came out. It's just a great album. If you haven't heard that latest from Saxon, you got to go check it out. There are two phenomenal, the Saxon album and the new Judas Priest are both just, they're excellent. They're excellent albums. The shame is we don't hear about them because they don't get played anywhere. I mean, there aren't really radio stations. There might be a few that play them, but you got to seek this stuff out. But that's definitely one worth seeking out, that new Saxon album. And thank you so much for the email. Any of you can email me. I would love to hear from you. ClassicGuitarRock@mail.com. One final word. Marlon and Greg are having this exchange on the sidelines here. Marlon says, Greg, the Schenker UFO is the best, 73 to 79 and 93 to 2002. Marlon, to your point, those 93 to 2002, like Walk on Water and Sharks and Covenant, those are really good albums that a lot of people don't even know they exist, where Schenker came back and joined the band. Those are excellent albums. It's awesome. So guys, thank you so much for checking in today. Thank you all for listening. Again, you can email me, classicguitarrock@mail.com. And I want you all to have a great Easter. If you celebrate Easter, have a wonderful Easter celebration. And we'll do this all again on Monday on the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update. Bye-bye. Take care. Live long and prosper.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Thanks for listening. You can email Jeremy at classicguitarrock@mail.com.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Tune in each weekday for the Classic Guitar Rock Daily Update.